Hello everyone, hope you're doing okay. I can almost guarantee that whatever you're doing, you're having a better time than the Russians in and around Ukraine, because the Russian forces have been receiving a lot of the flying presence from the Ukrainian side. We can see that a lot of long-range shooting has been going on in the past days. So let's get on to it. I cannot not hold the smile on my face, though I will have some bad news to tell you in this episode. So, all things first, let's quickly cover the fronts before we start talking on the large scale what is happening. So there is obviously some fires in the Belgrade area. We're going to cover those a little bit later. There is obviously some fires in Crimea. And again, we're going to talk a lot about those a little bit later. And tactically, I have talked that Udi was somewhat contested village, but it has been now confirmed that the Ukrainian forces have now been in the village for a while and it's now secured. So just to kind of close that chapter. We've seen a lot of kind of not really attempts to move, but trying to push the Ukrainians back, and we see a lot of mining along this line. So in areas around Kharkiv, Russians are using a lot of distance mining. So they're using those vehicles that are shooting the mines that are then covering a large area. So they're just trying to essentially prevent Ukrainians to advance on these fronts rather than expecting some kind of advancements. Not much new in this area. They're still fighting there. Ukrainians are still trying to find the spot where they can advance, but so far, as far as I've heard, it's only around Velika Komyshevacha. There is a little bit of advancement, kinda. I'm not going to say. So far, nothing major to report. And again, the most important thing to look out for is when we reach the village of Kamenka. But until then, let's just forget about this. So remember I told you about the fact that there was a major strike around the gathering of forces? Well, the consequences are still felt up to today. Obviously, Ukrainians are still fighting. This direction probably right now is the most silent one. There has been almost no attempts by the Russians to try to advance. So the strikes that were made around this area have been quite extensive and disrupting for the Russian forces. Now, I can basically take this line in the past days, and this covers around Bakhmut area. Around this area, all along this line, Russians try to make significant push. They've been pushing for 2-3 days, and now it's somewhat of a dying down. Maybe tomorrow they will start again. But we know that they've been trying really hard for the last 3 days to advance, and pretty much nothing happened, right? The advancement was stopped, and we were expecting this to happen. We were expecting that at some point these forces that they're throwing are going to start getting tired, going to start, basically ending. And we know that there is not a lot of resources that can back them up, that can exchange them. So we might still see here and there some advancement, but for a while now, this line has been semi-static. Well, I mean, like in strategic scale, all of this has been semi-static, but let's give it a benefit of the doubt. We're talking tactical level here. So around Avdiivka, same thing, completely same thing. Russians trying to advance the same way. Not much is happening. Here I want to say something about Pisky, because while it's a small village, everyone likes to talk about it. And in Pisky, it's a very unverified. There has been maybe reports that Ukrainians are trying to kind of go deeper into the village, so kind of trying to push back, but it is not confirmed. Like, don't look at this. There is very little information known because it's a small village, but there is still fighting for it that's going on, and Russians are not over it so far. So the only advancements that Russians kind of had was towards the village of Novomikhailivka. So in this area, I think even Novomikhailivka was even taken. But I think now that I'll see them up, I will need to double check. But we know that there has been some kind of a semi-success, which usually means that there has been advancements of the Russians in this area. That's pretty much it. On the rest of the areas, we are seeing static. Russians, I think they abandoned their hopes of moving anywhere from the Kherson region. So right now they're just firing basically all across the line, trying to fire at the Ukrainian forces, trying to fire at Mykolaiv, and so on. But we know that they are significantly trapped. And here is where the bad news start coming in, unfortunately. I knew that I needed to get to this point. So yesterday there was quite an extensive list of the video from Novokakhovka. And from Novokakhovka videos, there was a lot of explosions, and most of them, as I saw by video, was actually anti-air shooting down something. So there was significant explosions because something was shot down. And while in those kind of links that reported on those, they said that the bridge around Novokakhovka was struck, any kind of visual confirmation around that is not yet clear. So until further notice, until I see this, this gives me a little bit of a uneasy feeling that the Russians might saturated the anti-air in this area to have enough protection so that the bridge of Novokakhovka can not be targeted, that they can shoot down incoming missiles. So they're trying to, because we know that they're trying to repair it. So we'll see what's going to happen if we'll see confirmation on destroyed bridges, newly destroyed, because I know, for example, what happened. Remember, they were trying to repair the bridge around Artonivka, but then Ukrainians struck it. Famous video where there was a very nice night footage in the burning bridge with the equipment on it. And we know that these not forces, but the equipment and people that were working on Artonivka bridge have been moved to Novokakhovka. They have been transitioned and tried to repair the small bridge that was across the channel. So if I'll show you, it's this one. This small bridge, if you can see, there is basically a very, very tiny piece of river. And this is what Ukrainians were targeting, because obviously they cannot target the dam itself. I'm talking about why anti-air can intercept the missiles, because this is the same kind of situation that we're seeing in Crimea. And obviously the counter argument can be made that yes, but Crimea is not being attacked by HIMARS missiles. That is fair, but we know that in Crimea, after the successful operations around Saki and Jankoy, and there was another third one around Novomykhailovka, I think it's somewhere here. We know now that there has been several explosions around the airport and around Simferopol. There is also something around Kerch, and I believe something around Sevastopol. I might be wrong about this, so don't blame me if I'm wrong on this. But definitely Simferopol and Kerch. And most of the videos from those areas are showing that it is anti-air intercepting whatever it was in the air. With that said, while it seems that anti-airs are intercepting something, there wasn't any major big explosions in the air. You know, like when anti-air intercepts a missile, what I saw before in the air, then there's a big explosion in the sky, or at least there's like a flash. That was not happening. So it was mostly likely that it was some kind of drones flying in. But still, we know that anti-air is quite saturated in Crimea and is working full-time now. That's the situation on a tactical level. No movement, and Ukrainians are doing exactly what I told you it will do. It's systematically removing Russian logistics from the face of Ukrainian soil. And important to note is that in Crimea, significant junctures of train lines have been damaged, and we know that train lines are very important for Russian logistics. So now, not only the bridges are the problems for the southern grouping, but also the fact that there is no train line support, and now these groups is also not being supported properly. So it's a world of trouble. With that said, I'm expecting still this to be continuing for another couple of weeks, maybe a month or so. There has been voices that have been saying that, hey, Ukraine has promised a big advancement, and where is it? Well, again, the counteroffensive of Ukrainian forces that we were all expecting, I'm going to repeat this because apparently people tend to forget it, were that the Russians, they were focusing their attempts around Donbass, and they wanted to capture the Donbass. So it was expected by the Ukrainians that the main forces will be left around Donbass area, and then whatever forces they have here, then Ukrainians could just maybe soften them up, destroy the bridges, and then slowly but surely take them over, and that would be a very nice win for the Russians. However, the Russians obviously moved a lot of forces in here, which was, as said by many analysts, a big strategic mistake, because now they don't have enough forces to advance around Donbass, and because of the situation in that south pocket, they cannot really advance, and more even, they not only cannot advance, they also are now cut off almost entirely. So now it's unclear how many thousands of people, but it's a lot. Everyone knows it's a lot. So now Ukrainians basically, okay, counteroffensive, maybe postponed because there is now obviously a lot more forces. I'm kind of spelling it out, but it is a strategic mistake. This can cost and will cost probably by now. A lot of the people are saying that right now there is pretty much no chance that the Russians can save these forces. And this brings me to my next point, that the Russians are seeing this. They goes into the complete defense stance because they don't have enough forces to continue the advancement. They don't have forces that would allow them to randomly start attacking Ukraine. I don't know, go and capture Kyiv or something. So they are desperate, and that's why they are starting to look for off-ramp. They try to, can we solidify this? Can we do Minsk 3? Can we get to do? And as I said, they will be begging for negotiations. And this is exactly what we're seeing. We saw Erdogan fly to Putin, where they discussed some kind of cooperation for a long time. And now Putin came to Zelensky. And, would you be surprised or not? They offered him, hey, the grain export deal was so good. Man, let's go and talk also with Russia. It's going to be so much winning for you. Like, the conflict will be so frozen. You're going to get absolutely no land back. Amazing deal. Sign it right now. So obviously Zelensky said very diplomatically to fuck off. And this is basically only showing that Russia, and whatever we've been saying, that Russian attacking potential is not there. It's just basically underscores. They just signed off on the document that says we do not have the forces. We cannot. Because if they could, they would not beg for negotiations. They would just attack. They would just take. They would just advance. And I know that they tried to do something at the start of this week. Because starting this week, there was intensifying, trying to push here, southern front intensified. There was even shootings towards Sumy region. They were really trying to do some kind of, activity to get some of that pressure of the Kherson area off. But instead, Ukraine did a counterpunch to them and now said, haha, but what about Crimea? And that changed the picture a lot. Because while the anti-air is working and it does protect, for example, airfields, around Saki, there was a very devastating strike. Like, some people are saying that it destroyed basically half of the plane fleet that the Russian Navy had, or Black Sea Navy had. So it's a significant damage. And while there are still anti-air that is protecting other airfields, it is protecting for now. But what if they let something through, right? That even if this cannot be now expected to be like, a safe zone for the Russians anymore. Now this is within the range of some kind of striking potentials for the Russians. So we know that they are trying to move some of the planes towards the Russia side. And this goes for the whole strategic picture for this war. One of the things that I've seen people misunderstand a lot and think that, wow, Ukraine is destroying like these large facilities around Belgorod, where they destroyed a large ammunition storage facility, and also big truck repair station. Like, not truck, but like a vehicle repair station. They've destroyed a lot of those vehicles that were supposed to be refurbished and get sent back to the conflict. And was people are thinking, well, now they're going to destroy all the ammo, and then Russia will have no ammo. That is not the case. We need to understand that Russia was not preparing for a war like this, but it was preparing for a war from the Soviet Union's time. The amount of ammo for their guns and vehicles that they have is astronomical. People have estimated something like hundreds of millions of tons of equipment. So they say, oh, but per day they are using 10,000 tons of ammunition. Maybe. But if they have hundreds of millions, they can do this pretty much forever if we're talking in a sense of this war. So the ammo itself is not really an issue, right? There is an issue. What is an issue is what we all know is the logistics of the Russians. The problem of the Russian is that getting that ammo efficiently for them is the only way is by trains. They put it on a train, they get it to the point, and then it becomes a nightmare for them. And the more Ukrainians can push the train lines, the more Ukrainians can push some kind of facilities to which, so basically, the further it is, the train must drop stuff on the ground and then trucks need to take over, the better it is for Ukraine. It is straining Russian supply chain and networks. This all helps mitigate a lot of the imbalance that in quantity that Russia has compared to Ukraine. It does not yet give Ukraine an edge. It is a slow procedure. If we were talking before Western supplies that Ukraine was about 1 to 20 supplies of ammo and artillery, right now it's something closer to 1 to 3. So Russia still have three times the artillery pieces than the Ukraine has. But slowly we're getting there. Like the supplies from the allies are coming in, and this is helping a lot. Another big problem for the Russians is that their equipment is old, and maintaining this equipment is becoming a really big problem. We're getting a lot of reports that it's not that artillery pieces cannot shoot more ammo. Well, there is not enough ammo that artillery pieces can shoot. We're getting reports that a lot of the artillery pieces are being now recalled and out of Ukraine because their barrels have been gone. They need a replacement barrels. And that is a big problem because while they have maybe 100,000 artillery pieces, maybe more, I'm not sure, I'm getting number out of my head, but there is not enough spare parts, and they cannot be properly manufactured in sufficient quantities right now. Russia really tried to do something, it didn't really work out. And we see that new packages are coming in from the US, and we're seeing more anti-radiation missiles. We see that right now anti-air around Novakhovka in this Kherson area, and anti-air around Crimea is big targets. So that's why something like HARM missiles, I'm really looking forward to see if there will be more strikes. But we know that Ukraine is striking a lot. There has been fires and there has been significant damages done. It's basically 20 strikes per day that Ukraine is doing. If this is not clockwork removal of Russia from Ukraine, I don't know what is. So we are not yet at the point where Ukraine has the initiative and they are having power enough, sufficient enough to overpower Russia. But we know by this point that Ukraine has pressured Russia into a position where they are in a complete dead end. They don't have an option to attack. They can't attack. The firepower is not sufficient. Their tactics that they could work don't work anymore. And Ukraine is countering everything with equality. And they are continuing to growing their quantities as we go along with the training programs and additional supplies of equipment. So we're looking forward to how Ukraine will transition in maybe after this coming month. And to close it off, I want to introduce you to some small thing. It's a Ukrainian war meme. It's the thing that they're using so much by now that if you're trying to follow some kind of news from Ukraine, you're going to get really confused when you try to translate some of their news. And that something is the word bavovna. Bavovna is a Ukrainian word for cotton. One might ask, what does it mean? Because a lot of time this is used with relationship to explosions that are happening all around the Russian-controlled side. And this comes from the Russian propaganda trying to hide some or downplay some of the explosions that were happening earlier in the war. Russian propaganda would report on any kind of explosion as if it's not an explosion, but to downplay, they used the soft word. They just said it was just a pop, or how it's said, chlapok in Russian. And chlapok, actually, if you misplace the stress in that word, then it becomes chlopak. Chlopak is in Russian is cotton. That's why it's became a meme for the Ukrainians. So they say instead of the pop that happened around that area, they say it's the cotton that happened. And cotton is bavovna in Ukrainian. So there you go, a little bit of knowledge of Ukrainian language from me. I hope you have a great day. I hope Russians will have a really bad night.